It's a pleasure to be here amongst you. It's actually my first visit to Montreal. I haven't been to the city before, so it's nice that in my first visit I also got this opportunity to come and see you in here as well. And the brothers contacted me about conducting a lecture on marriage and family life. So inshallah we'll touch a little bit upon this topic, and at the end I will be happy to entertain your questions on this issue as well. Actually, if you have questions during the talk, you can feel free to ask as well. Okay, so we don't have to wait until the end, because this is more of an interactive session as opposed to a lecture. That's why I prepared this PowerPoint slide. So if we come to the topic of discussion here, just an outline of what we'll be discussing. And you all understand English, right? I hope. Yeah, good. Because I don't understand French, nor can I speak French very well. In fact, if I speak French, I don't think you'll understand anything I say. So we'll just stick to this. So we'll be talking first of all about the merits of marriage, some of the benefits, the advantages of marriage. Then we'll be taking a look at the qualities and the characteristics to look for in a spouse. What do you look for in the spouse? Is it just the muscle and the beauty, or is it something else? And then the spousal relations, which normally what happens after some time in marriage. This is what the picture you get. And finally, the beautiful life of family. And that's what we'll be taking a look at. So I'll try to keep this brief, because like I said, I'd like this to be an interactive discussion as opposed to just being a lecture. The lecture will be tomorrow, inshallah, tomorrow night. So let's get into the merits of marriage. And like I said, this is just a brief overview. This topic can be discussed over a period of, let's say, 10 nights in the month of Muharram. People can talk about marriage and marriage and marriage. You can see I'm giving you a condensed version. Do you know this condensed milk? The can of the condensed milk? That's the kind of version I'm giving you of marriage here. Just the condensed version. So the merits of marriage. We live in a society where everything is just against financial gain. People talk about financial gain. If it's something that's going to be making sense financially, it's worth getting involved in. Not, then it's not worth getting involved in. Even when it comes to marriage, they actually think about the financial gain of marriage. Is it really worth getting married, or is it not worth getting married? So if we think of that perspective, if we leave religion aside a little bit, we find, yes, indeed, there is a financial advantage. In fact, research has shown there is financial advantage to marriage. From taxes purposes, from the income purposes, and so on and so forth. Canadian statistics indicate that there is financial gain in getting married. So even if we leave marriage aside here, from the financial perspective, it makes sense to get married. Okay, but how does that relate with the Quran and the Hadith and the traditions of the Holy Prophet? We find that they actually go hand in hand. For example, for the financial gain, if we take a look at chapter 24, Surah An-Nur, verse number 32, God Almighty says, and those who can read English, the Arabic, you can read what it says in Arabic. I'll just paraphrase. I will not translate the verses nor the hadith. I will paraphrase them. Okay, so if you want the actual translation, come and see me later. But basically, the verse number 32 of chapter 24 is saying that get married and don't worry about financial gain. If they are poor, the husband and the wife, if they are poor at the time of the marriage, God will take care of that. So financial gain will happen as a consequence to marriage. And we have the hadith that says from the Holy Prophet, get married because it's more beneficial to you, financially speaking. So even the Prophet said so. And then another hadith states that if any individual gets married for the sake of preserving his or her religion, in doing so, they are obeying God and His command. And for that reason, God Almighty would not leave them in need of money. So, and we find this quite regularly. A lot of people, we see examples of this. Actually, I've witnessed this myself from many individuals who get married. At the time when they get married, for example, financially they're not doing very well. They may be students at colleges or universities, or they may be recent graduate with lots of debts and student loans to take care of. But eventually, after a few years of their marriage, they progress. You find them buying a house, and in fact, you find them getting more successful. And research, like I said, research has shown that individuals who are married, they are actually more financially successful than those who are not married. And one reason they say, and by the way, I'm a scientist, so when I say research, I don't mean Google research. I mean actually real research. Stuff that you can find on like, you know, real search engines for scientific data. Okay, so real research has shown that that individuals who do get married, they are successful. And one reason they propose is that those individuals who are married, they have more sense of responsibility. And with that sense of responsibility comes a more sense of commitment. So when a person who's married goes to a job, they try to stay in that job and not switch from one job to another job. Whereas they find people who are not married, they tend to do that more often. And because those individuals who are married stay in their jobs longer, then they get promoted in the job. And hence you find them getting advanced, and their salaries get advanced as well for that reason. Okay? So from research perspective, from the religious perspective, from the Quranic and the Hadith perspective, that is, we find there is a financial merit to marriage. Okay, are there any questions about this so far? Good. I like it when there are no questions. It makes my life easy. Next, happiness. Again, if we take a look at real research articles, stuff that is published in some medical journals or journals of marital relations or journals of psychology, those journals indicate that those people who are married, they are happier, they live a happier life. They actually even did a relationship between, is it really the marriage or is it just having someone, like, you know, the opposite gender? So they did a comparison between marriage and common law partners. Those individuals who live together but they're not married. Okay, of course, from the Islamic perspective, it's an unlawful relationship. But nonetheless, from the scientific perspective, they looked at that study. And they found that people who are married, they tend to suffer less from depression than those individuals with a common law partner. And they speculate the reason for this is because the lack of security, especially when the individuals get older. As the individuals get older, when they are not married, they worry. They start getting worried that, will my partner leave me now and go to somebody else? Are they going to stay with me now? You know, now that they get older, they start having these thoughts in their minds. And this can actually result in them suffering from depression. So this has been shown in research. And if you want, those of you who are at the universities, and those of you who do go to some scientific search engines, you can actually go to a website. It's called PubMed.com. If you go to PubMed.com, that's actually a database from the U.S. government. It's a U.S. government database for most, if not all, the health sciences journals. So just type in, for example, marriage and psychology or marriage and advantages and stuff like that. That's a real search engine. There you get actual scientific data, but you need to be from a university to access that. Otherwise, if you're not at the university, you'll only get the abstract. You won't have access to the article itself. So you need to be in the university to access the article. So from these engines, from this research, we find that indeed there is a sense of security with marriage, and that's scientifically speaking. So this is something that has been shown in literature, in research. And then this, of course, translates and goes hands in hand with what the Quran says and with what the Hadith says. Quran, of course, the Holy Quran, and the Hadith, for those of you who don't speak Arabic well, Hadith is the traditions of the Holy Prophet, the sayings of the Holy Prophet, or the Imams, alayhimus salam. So in surah number 30, Surah Ar-Rum, verse number 21, God Almighty states that, when you get married, God will implant mercy and love in your life. And that is something truly miraculous, especially in nations or in parts of the world where the husband, for example, never meets the wife, or meets the wife on a very short period, for example, very short instant, and he talks to her very briefly, and then they get married, and then all of a sudden you find this compatibility in their lives, and you just wonder, how does that happen? This individual who never lived his life with any other individual, and now, or this lady who never lived her life with another individual, all of a sudden now there's somebody else, and he or she has to think about what that other individual wants, or how does she think, and so on and so forth. So that compatibility, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty says that He plants it and He puts it in. So this source of compatibility, this sort of love and compassion that instilled in the institution of marriage, in the heart of the husband and the wife, really drives a sense of tranquility and security to the individual. And then the sayings of the Holy Prophet kind of correlate with that, where he says that if a married man sleeps, it is better before God than a person who's single, who spends his day fasting and his night praying. So if a person who says, I'm not going to get married, I'm going to keep worshiping God Almighty for the rest of my life, and another individual says, no, I would do well get married, the Prophet says that individual, the second, the latter one, is better than the first one. So there are reasons for this, of course, and part of the emotional reasons are involved, the psychological reasons are involved here, and for that reason we find there is an emphasis here on the marriage. So there are a lot of issues with the marriage and the happiness, and this has been shown in research, and it goes hand in hand, correlated with actually what is mentioned in the Holy Quran and in the traditions of the Holy Prophet and the Imams alayhimus salam. Any questions here so far? Wonderful, you guys are a great crowd. So, characteristics to look for in men. Okay, a person comes and he wants to get married. What do you look for? What kind of a house he lives in? What kind of a car he drives? What education he has? What do you look for? What are the criteria here? So Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam responds. He says, a person whom you accept his religion and basically his manners. These two are the main things, religion and manners. If a person prays, fasts, at least on the outside, we don't know what's inside the heart, that we cannot tell, but at least on the outside, the individual seems to be a decent human being, a decent man. See, even he accepts that, even he likes that. See, he cheers about it. Decent man, hey! Because they're hard to find. You can't find those decent people these days. They're rare commodities. So if a person is a decent man, got decent religion. So yeah, whenever I say this word, kind of like he keeps on popping up again. He really likes that word. So that individual, then Imam al-Baqir says, deserves to get married. You can trust your daughter to such an individual. A person who's got the religion and who's got the manners. And of course, by manners, we don't mean a person is like, infallible. He never makes a mistake. Nobody is perfect. And in fact, that's what I tell ladies all the time, and I tell the brothers too. Remember, when you're getting married, to the sisters, remember, the person who's coming to you is not Imam Ali. And so don't expect a person to be like Imam Ali. And to the brothers, don't expect her to be Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. That's not going to happen. So nobody is perfect. Everybody has some flaws. But nonetheless,